I lost many a man. Young ones never been with a woman. Some died of disease. Some are butchered in Scythia by the banks of the Oxus.
Alexander the Great, the man who conquered the known world. His name is still spoken with awe. But what about the men who bled for him? The ones who left their homes, marched to the ends of the earth and never came back. This is why it sucked to be a soldier in Alexander's army. When Alexander left Macedon in 334 BCE, his men didn't know it would be over 10 years before they saw home again, if they ever did. Imagine leaving behind your wife, your children, your parents, knowing you might die in a foreign land. No letters, no news, just the hope that maybe, one day, you'd come back. And those who did return? They came back to a home that had moved on without them. Children grown, wives remarried, and a country that barely remembered their sacrifice. Alexander's men didn't just fight, they marched. Every single day. 20,000 miles over 10 years, through some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth. Heat stroke in the desert, frostbite in the mountains, starvation in the jungles. Many simply sat down and refused to go on until their officers forced them up, or they died where they sat. Alexander's name would be remembered for eternity. Statues, stories, cities named after him. But the men who won his battles? Forgotten. No statues for them, no cities named in their honor. Just a shallow grave in a foreign land. You didn't fight for hours. You fought for minutes, because that's how long it took for the frontline soldiers to die. If you were wounded, there were no medics, no painkillers. Your best bet? A friend putting you out of your misery before the enemy did. Dysentery, malaria, gangrene. Disease killed more men than any battle. A simple scratch could turn septic. A bad tooth could be a death sentence. Food, often spoiled. Water, sometimes poison. And when things got really bad, desertion, not an option. If you tried to run, you were hunted down and executed. If you surrendered, you were likely tortured or enslaved. Even when the men finally refused to march further, at the Hyphasis River in India, Alexander was furious. But after 10 years, even he couldn't push them any further. Alexander died young. His empire crumbled. The men who survived? Many returned home to nothing. No riches, no land, just old wounds and forgotten promises. For all their suffering, their names are lost to history. Alexander is remembered as a god. His men? Just dust. Glory? Maybe. But for most, being a soldier in Alexander's army just sucked.
All we wish for is to see our children and our wives and our grandchildren one last time before we join our brothers in that dark house they call Hades.